Hello, this is Steve. Welcome to another video on this C1 course. Today we're looking at speaking part 4. You, the viewer, want some tips on how to do well in the speaking exam, and especially speaking part 4, which is where you have to go into a bit more detail. You have to talk a bit more. It's a bit more complex. The questions can be tricky. You have to have some good ideas and know how to express them. So that's what we're going to practice today in this video. Lots of examples, tips, samples, everything you need for part 4. Starting with the format. So part 4 has some more open questions on the same topic as part 3. If in part 3 you were talking about technology in schools, then you're going to have some questions about technology, about education, some open, big, like thematic questions. The format is they ask you a question. They'll say your name, which they learned because you told them at the start of the exam, and they're always remembering your name. So they ask you a question. What do you think? And you answer it. They could expect you to discuss a question with your partner, in which case they do some kind of exaggerated, inviting gesture and they don't say anyone's name. If they don't say a name, that means it's an open question. Someone should take the initiative and give a little answer, and then ideally invite the other person to answer as well. Try and make it a bit conversational because it can be open like that for both people. And it shows really good interactive communication if you can manage the conversation a bit and invite the other person in, listen to them. Remember, that's one of the criteria, and you only get part 3 and 4 to demonstrate that criteria. So if you've got one of these questions, try and interact with the other person. Important. Or they could do the great trick. They ask your partner a question and you think, I'll relax for a minute. And then they say, would you agree? And you weren't paying attention. You need to pay attention to all the questions because you've got this what do you think question, and you don't want to look like a turkey and say, can you repeat the question? Nothing, it's not a big deal if you do, but it's better for the exam in terms of wasting time, showing all the skills, if you don't have to do that, if you're listening, participating to all parts of the exam, which you should be anyway. It's a speaking exam, you need to be 100% focused for the entire 15 minutes. So that's the format, questions. Let's look at some of these questions and how it works. As I said, this starts with part 3. So this was my part 3 question, how can technology improve school? We had a discussion. We said, laptops in class, sending messages to the teacher, interesting. Then we need to think about how we do part 4. We're going to have, the main skill is saying something on whatever topic they give you, whatever question, because it could be any sort of question. You can't prepare these questions. It's any topic, any question. So you just need to be ready to talk about it. The skill of very quickly thinking up some relevant idea and then being able to express it clearly. A great way to practice this is an old radio show called Just a Minute, which I wouldn't really recommend listening to. There's some fun parts, if you're very bored, but nowadays with so much content, there's better things to spend your time listening to. But Just a Minute is a good way to practice. In Just a Minute, the contestants are given a topic and they have to talk about it for 1 minute. Sounds easy. The trick is you are not allowed to hesitate. That is to say, there's no umming and ahhing. You say or ah, your turn is over, it goes to the next person. You're not allowed to repeat any words, so you have to really use your vocabulary. You're only allowed to repeat like it, is, little common words like that, okay, but nouns and verbs, that kind of thing, adjectives, no repeating. And you're not allowed to deviate. You have to stay on the topic. I'd recommend watching a clip on YouTube or something just to see how good they are at it. They're mostly actors and comedians who speak for a living, but it's a good challenge to try and do it like that. When I do this in class, when I'm in a good mood, sometimes I try and do this in Spanish. Give me a topic, plátanos, bananas, and you have to talk about bananas for 1 minute, and you have to say bananas originally come from Costa Rica, where they are made on big plantations with thousands of people working to produce this delicious yellow fruit. Personally, I eat one for breakfast every morning, and I have done for the last 10 years. I like the flavor, and I'm especially fond of the fact that they are healthy and nutritious. Consider the potassium content, which is very useful as well. So in conclusion, although I'm not quite finished yet, I would say bananas are a great piece of food that we should all consume as much as possible. I have bananas every time before I go running because they're also good for energy, and so on and so on and so on. It is difficult. That was obviously not prepared, and you start going a bit. But anyway, the point is, I can talk about a topic. That's what we're going to practice. How? There are some tools you can think about to help you answer these questions. One thing you can do in a question is define what the question is. Well, what is technology? If we say, how can technology improve school? And you're asking me something about technology in school, for me, technology normally means mobile phones, which have good and bad things. Technology means using laptops in class and also using other like 3D printing or glasses outside of it, and so on and so on. So a little definition gives you some time to answer the question, to think. That's a nice way of thinking. I've got to say something important, relevant on this topic. So you can define what they are asking you. You can describe it. This is similar to what I just said. Classrooms are full of technology. We have lessons with a PowerPoint. We have students researching on laptops, playing educational games on their mobiles. What this means is, the result of this is, so a little description of the topic, description like imagining the situation. This is another way of approaching an answer, to give you something to say, to give you an idea of what the question could be, what the answer could be. There's a few more of these, so stay with me and try and think, how can I use them? One you have to do in lots of questions is give your opinion. We have to be careful not to become over-reliant on technology. That's my opinion about technology. When you give your opinion in the C1 exam, it is always followed by a reason. You always justify what you're saying, because we could lose some skills that are important later in life. When you give a reason, it's always followed by an example. For instance, some people can't spell because they're so used to letting their phone or computer autocorrect what they're writing. So here we're really building up a complex, developed answer using these typical things of definition, opinion, reason, example. You can do this for most questions. Maybe not every single one, but some of them will fit most questions. If you think it's useful, personal experience. In my school, students use a lot of technology. Some use it well, others are just wasting their time. That's my experience on this topic, okay? And it's another way of, you can see I'm using some useful language, a waste of time. Using something well, using the adverb there. So I'm using the language that they want to see, I'm communicating, and I'm using these tools to get there. Couple more, an anecdote. Here you have to be careful because it's a short exam and we don't want long stories. But, I remember the first time I 3D printed something. It was a key ring related to what we were studying, and it was pretty cool. Technology in class, technology in school, a little personal story of something you did. Using popular culture, maybe we could think about for this one it's not so good, to be honest. For technology in schools it's not so good, but for other questions it can be better. How is this topic portrayed in films, music, books, and so on? Or whenever you see technology in films, they're always elite hackers. But really, most students are just learning digital literacy, how to use Office programs and Word programs and presentation programs, which are really important skills. But you can contrast popular culture and how is it shown in popular culture in your question. It's one useful trick for having something to say for part 4. And finally, speculate. Think about, okay, you're asking me this question about the now, but what's going to happen in the future? All students will have iPads to do their work on, surely. It's going that way and it's useful, and I think that's the future. And finally, I forgot this one because this is not really on Just a Minute, but it is on part 4 of the exam. Like I said, the interactive part, ask a question. If you've said something about technology in school, then say, are you very dependent on technology? Do you use lots of technology in your school? Involve the other person in these open questions. Really good way of firstly adding to your answer, like finishing your answer, but also showing that skill of conversational fluency. So there you've got lots of tricks for how you can answer these part 4 questions. Like with lots of these things in the speaking exam, it can be a bit artificial, a bit weird at first, because it's like you really have to think, okay, now my opinion on this topic, now a reason, now an example, now my personal experience. But The more you do it, the easier it gets, the more naturally it comes, and it should help you answer these part 4 questions in a detailed, developed way, which is what they want. They don't want you just saying, I think technology is really good because you can write an essay on the computer. That's true, but that's not a C1 answer that's showing off lots of vocab and showing off connecting your ideas and everything. So these kind of skills, practice them. And that's what we're going to do next. Let's get into some practice. So we've got some part 4 questions that you might have. If this was part 3, technology in school, sorry if you're very bored of this, we'll change the topic in a minute. But this is what I'd consider some possible part 4 questions. Like you can see, the same topic, but a bit bigger, some are more general, some are more specific on this topic. So first one, technology helping or distracting more? Let's think about this question. Well, I would say a good answer would be something like this. Well, it's certainly true that students can get distracted by their mobiles in class nowadays, with games and social media tempting them more than schoolwork. However, technology also offers serious benefits, like being able to organise your work better with Google Docs than on paper. Overall, I'd have to say it depends on the student, but for me, it has helped a lot. Okay, this is again a very good answer, but what makes this a good answer? It might be beyond the reach of most C1 students, but what I hope you can do is identify some of the features that make it a good answer and try to use them in your speaking exam. So we can start with using adverbs to strengthen or qualify your opinions. Don't just say it's true, say it's certainly true, it's definitely true, it's surely true, maybe true, and so on. So you're showing some nuance of your opinion. You might notice how I've changed the wording from the question. The question was, do they distract or help students more? Well, I've changed it to get distracted. So I've put it in a different form when I'm answering the question to show that I can manipulate language like that. I'm using specific vocab for the topic of technology, talking about social media and education, talking about schoolwork, as in contrast to homework, schoolwork, homework. Everything's linked, of course. It's like I'm building a little answer with however and overall. I can use a gerund at the start of a sentence, which is a nice grammatical feature, being able to organise your work. And then, as I said, like a little mini essay, a little concluding phrase to show my answer is finished, to show I've taken it all into account. Overall, it's helped me a lot. It's helped me a lot. I can use my personal experience in these questions because these questions are, they're general questions, but you can use your personal experience to show your opinion on them. So all these little features, these ideas, more things you can include in part 4. Let's keep practicing a bit. Let's think about, this key idea of developing your answer. So a different question, methods for learning a language or learning English. And the question is a tough one. How does your personality affect how you learn languages? Well, I think an undeveloped answer, the first idea that comes to my head is personality. Okay, social people, talkative people, they're going to do better because they can talk more, practice more, they're going to practice their language more. Okay, and an undeveloped answer might just be like that. If you talk more, you're sociable, it will be easier. Let's take that idea and let's spread it out. Let's think how we can make that better. Try by yourself if you want. What could you add to this answer to make it a more developed, impressive C1 answer? I've gone with something like this. Pause the video and read it if you want. I'm not going to say it all. I'm going to do a little trick because obviously in the exam, again, this is impossible. Even I can't speak like this because this is planned, clear, coherent, organised. It's very difficult to talk like this. But what you can do is think, okay, key ideas that I'm going to say in this question. Well, I'm going to start with a little introductory buying time phrase. I'm going to give my key idea, which is if you talk more, you're sociable, it's an advantage. I'm going to give an example of a language exchange that I did at school. And then I'm going to give a counter example on the other hand, like that. And I would do all of that and it would be something like, well, that's an interesting question. My first thought, the first thing that comes to mind is that if you talk more, you have an advantage because you're going to be more sociable, you can practice the language and you get better at speaking the language. An example would be I did a language exchange with a school from North Carolina that visited our school, and it was really useful to talk to them. And I think my outgoing personality helped me a lot because I didn't stop talking and I was expressing my ideas, improving my language. On the other hand, I guess if you're more of an introverted person, this might be good for studying grammar and reading. So you could also learn some useful skills when you're learning a language using that type of personality. And something like that. So you can see, take the ideas, put them in a developed answer. The only thing I forgot was the question. Not bad, come on, 9 out of 10, I just forgot. As we said, if you can open the question up, open the conversation up, it's really nice in part 4 as well. Of course, I'm still cheating a bit. Preparing so much is sort of cheating, because in the speaking exam it's going to be spontaneous. But what I'm trying to tell you is that take advantage of the few seconds while they are asking the question, while your partner is speaking, to be thinking of your key ideas, and then you start talking. So on this question, we're still talking about technology. Are video games a waste of time, or can you learn something? So I've got my idea, because I've got my two sides, haven't they? Waste of time or learn something. And I'm going to talk about silly games that are like addictive and a bit, you're not learning anything. But some games that can teach us things like history, for example. So my answer, this time is not prepared, this is it. My answer will be something like, well, I think there are definitely lots of silly video games. I see people on the subway every morning, for example, playing these games with blocks and fruit, and I think this is a waste of time. However, thinking back to when I was young and I played like Civilization and Medieval Total War, and I learned so much history because these games are based on history, so I definitely learned something from video games. There we go, a nice contrasting answer, however, examples, and that's a nice developed answer for part 4. Let's do a couple more, now just all in my head. Answer it yourself first, see if we're having similar ideas, see if we're using similar techniques to develop these answers. So this is our last question about technology. Do you prefer to work on paper or on a computer? Well, for me, this one is much more simple. I prefer to work on a computer. I think the convenience of having everything saved and everything organized is so much better. You can present your work very nicely. You can share it between different places. I very rarely would work on paper now. Maybe for drawing, like some kind of plan for something I want to build, but almost always on a computer is better for me. So something like that. I think I'm trying to give specific examples, reasons of why I'm developing my answer. Let's do a couple more different topics. Talking about places to visit, free time. Let's have a look at this first question. I'll do the first one, then you can try all of them yourself, as you should be doing. But this first one, do you have enough free time? Why or why not? And I would have to say no. I guess everybody says no. Everybody thinks they don't have enough free time. But since we've had a baby, now I really think this. Before I realized that I had a lot of free time. Now it just seems to be working or cleaning or cooking or looking after the baby in some way. The only time I have free now, I do still have time to do some exercise. So I should be grateful for that, I guess. And then we get a nice answer for that. You can see I'm not talking for ages. I'm just trying to give a couple of clear ideas, examples, reasons, everything I talked about for developing these answers. That's the trick that we need to do, developed answers. Let's do one more. Let's go back to we did this in part 3 in the part 3 video, if you're interested in this question. Problems in relationships. Let's do the first question again. Would you rather go on holiday with friends or family? I can see the advantage of going on holiday with friends, because maybe, sometimes you can argue with family and you choose your friends, so you should get on with them very well. But I think I would still go with family, just because there's less pressure with family for me. If I want to stay inside and read something, I can do it. Or if we just want to, stay inside and watch a film, we can do it. If you're with friends, it feels like you have to be doing something all the time. So I quite like a family holiday. There we go, some little answer like that. As I said, this is spontaneous. I'm just trying to practice what I've been telling you. Give examples, give reasons. You can even do better than me, to be honest, because I'm doing this quite quickly, and you probably have a bit more time than me to try and develop them in part 4. But it's something like that. That's what you need to be doing. In summary then, part 4. Showing how you can develop your ideas using all these tricks, tips, tricks, trips, No. To develop your ideas. The tricks we saw, you can practice this. If you need more fuel, if you need more questions, well, it's very easy. Put topic, conversation questions in a search engine and you'll find lots to practice. As always, with a timer is good. With another person is by far the best, or at least recording yourself, listening back, taking it seriously. Focused study. Better than just having a chat once a week would be 5 minutes every day. I'm going to do one part 4 question every day and record myself and see how I'm doing and think, am I getting better? What did I find difficult? What can I improve next time? And keep going. And like everything in life, you will get better with some practice. Right, that's the end of speaking part 4. Watch the rest of my videos for the other parts of the exam and other useful Cambridge content. Thanks, bye.